I'd like to ask Councilman Woods if he would give us the invocation.
O most gracious and Heavenly Father, we first and foremost, Lord, give you thanks for allowing us to see another day, Lord. Father, we thank you, Lord, for life, health, and strength. Father, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us to gather together upon this building, Lord, to discuss and plan for the future of Marlboro County citizens. Father, the thing we do, Lord, we hope will be gratifying to your eyes and ears. Father God, protect us from the seen and unseen. These are our blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. All right, moving to the approval of agenda items. We do have an executive session listed on here. We do need to go into executive session at some point. We'll just leave it in the order of this agenda, and it will be for economic and personnel issues, but I'm just making everyone aware of that. Hey, moving to the presentations, I'd like to call.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the agenda items written.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. All right, thank you for catching me on that. All right, I'd like to call Sheriff McNeil forward for the presentation of the South Carolina Sheriff's Association Life Saving Award.
Good evening, Chairman, council members, and everyone else. I want to thank you for this opportunity to give us to share with our community some things that happened recently, well, it actually was in December, and I need to speak about one of our officers, and that's why we're here tonight. That's why some of us are here. On December the 24th of last year, Officer Joshua Hatcher was riding down Hickory Grove Road that night, and he was just patrolling the area, and as he was coming through, he noticed some tail lights down in a ravine. He thought, according to him, he wasn't sure. So he said he passed by, and then he realized there was some tail lights, so he backed up and went back. And he said when he went back, he went over to the ravine and saw a car down in the ravine, submerged in the water. And he didn't know if anybody was in the car. He tried to get somebody in the car. He couldn't get anybody. He kept hitting on the car. Couldn't get anyone. And just as he got ready to break the back window out, the driver's side door opened, and a gentleman came out and just kind of went down into the water, was going out further away, and he was trying to call him to get him back. And he was able to coax him and to get him to dog pedal and started swimming back, and he had to get a stick to reach out to him to get him out of the water. And it was cold that night. It was 18 degrees that night. And he called 911. He was able to get the gentleman out of the car to get EMS there, and they took the gentleman to the hospital. And a few days later, I was talking to somebody, and they said, look, see, this guy came by, one of your guys saved his life. I said, what do you mean? I said, because I hadn't heard anything about it. He said, yes, this guy went in the water, so he almost drowned, and he said, one of your guys got him out. I said, well, who was it? He said, it was Hatcher. I said, okay. So I called Hatcher, and he said, yes, sir. He said, well, I didn't do anything because I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I said, that's true, but somebody needs to know what you did. And when he told me who it was, he said it was Vondre Johnson. And Vondre had been one of my neighbors ever since he was born. And so I called Vondre. He said, yes, that guy saved my life. I said, I would have died that night. He said, there's no way I would have lived in that water. And so when I got up with Hatcher and we talked about it, and he didn't think it was a big deal. But to me, it is a big deal. Every time we go out and do something, it's not every day that I can look at somebody and say that they're a hero. I can't. I think a bunch of us do heroic things in life. I think a lot of us do things to help people. But we may not go to that extreme to do what he did. He could have been nonchalant and went on about his business and never stopped to do anything about that car. But he was concerned enough that night to stop to go back to see what it was. And as a result of that, he did save somebody's life. And not only did he save a man's life, but Vondre has two twin daughters about 3 or 4 years old. Can you imagine what it would have been like that Christmas morning when they woke up, not to have a dad? So for me, yeah, it is a big deal. It's a big deal when most of the things that we hear on TV and on the news is not always a positive thing when it comes to police. So yes, it is a big deal. And I'm honored to say that he works for the Marlboro County Sheriff's Office. I'm honored to say he works with me. It says a lot about the character of who he is. And not just him, but all of those guys and ladies that work for us. I know it's all about you tonight, but I have to say, I think we've got 30-some people that work up there that I think any of those 30, if they had done it, would have done the same thing. It just so happened it was Josh, and he's one of the newer ones. He hadn't even been working hardly maybe about a year or two. He tells me 2 years. But I called the Sheriff's Association and talked with the executive director, and we were able to get something done now, and something's going to be done later. We'll talk about it at a later date. But we were able to get this plaque for him. It's a life-saving award. And it says, the South Carolina Sheriff's Association hereby awards Josh Hatcher with the Life-Saving Award for demonstrating exceptional courage and performing an effort to save or preserve a human life. Presented to him, here it says February 3rd, 2023. And Josh, if you come forward, I'll be more than happy. It's my honor to present it to you.
Thank you, Deputy Hatcher, for your courageous action and your service to our county. Thank you.
Still up. Yeah, I'm still up. I think I'm giving an update with the towns, and I'm assuming we're talking about McCall and Clio right now. The situation in McCall and Clio is basically, I think, pretty much the same. They have a police chief in McCall, and they have a police chief in Clio. But I think that's all that they have, if I'm not mistaken. So we are still taking calls in Clio and McCall. If there's a call that goes out, obviously we're still responding to most of those calls. There are still days when there's nobody in McCall, and on those days, obviously we take all calls. We do not patrol the town of McCall, nor do we patrol the town of Clio, but we will respond to calls. If someone works McCall in overtime, then obviously we will be asking to be reimbursed for anybody that works overtime in McCall. We were expecting to do that with the town of Clio, but I think they came up with the police chief, and so there's no agreement, to my knowledge, with anyone with Clio. And I just want people to understand, we will respond to calls. By law, we will respond to those calls, but we do not have to patrol those areas, which makes a difference. It's one thing to go to a call, it's something else to be riding around town when you can kind of deter some of the things that go on. So there's nobody sometimes in those places to do that. Now, they do have a police chief in both towns, and I think they work days for most of the part, but we still answer calls at night. Eventually, something will need to be done for us, and I say that because if we can continue to answer those calls, it kind of stretches us with the manpower that we have. We're already stretched, but to add those townships in adds more calls to what we're doing, and so our calls has increased. As a result, we've increased the number of calls that we have. At a later date, obviously not now, but that's going to be something that will have to be addressed by this council as far as us and what we're doing, because it becomes a burden to us when we're having to answer additional calls, because calls are starting to back up. A simple thing, the date comes to mind because I remember February the 9th, we had 2 suicidal calls at the same time. Both of them were kids. And we're trying to get 2 places at one time to still answer calls, and we got people waiting, but we got 2 people that possibly could have committed suicide, and we're trying to get both places at the same time, and you can't do that. And with the number of people we have working, 4 people working, it's almost impossible. And I'd hate to know we couldn't get somewhere to save somebody's life because we were some other place trying to save somebody's life. And I don't know a fix-all, but the fix-all is we're gonna need eventually more people.
As of right now, how many calls are you answering in
On a day,
the
about
city of
15,
McCall?
about 15, 16 calls, and it averages 45 minutes an hour. And sometimes you gotta take into consideration it may take 25 to 30 minutes to get to the call, because of where it is. So that makes a difference. Again, like I said, and I always say, if I had enough people, I could just put somebody in every area, and they would be there. And that's ideal for us. If I got somebody in McCall, Cloud, Wallace, and Blenheim, we could work better, because I got somebody everywhere. I think some of you would understand if you were down in Wallace and you had to go to Blenheim, it's gonna take a minute. That takes a while. And that's something you can't always fix. Yes, sir?
Sure. Do you have any update from the town of McCall? Are they trying to get police officers, or what is the status of that?
It was my understanding, and I don't know this because I didn't sit there, that they were interviewing a couple of guys a couple of weeks ago, but it didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't pan out. But I do believe everybody's looking, but it's hard to find officers now. I mean, it's not even a state, a county problem, that's a state and a national problem where officers, we're short. Everybody's short. And so if you find somebody, you got a treasure. We're blessed. We've got a treasure here. We really do. But it doesn't help us. And answering those calls, half our calls now basically coming from a call, I'll be honest. Half our calls come straight from a call. And we need help. We need help. And obviously budget time is coming up, and I will be making that pitch for more people. We have to have it. I'm sorry.
Is anything coming down the pipe? Anything from the academy coming up this way? Anything that looks certified?
No, sir. Everybody's got the same problem. I promise you, everybody has the same problem. Everybody's looking for officers. And now it's becoming more of a salary thing. Who's got the most money? Who can pay the most? And it's hard to compete when you got guys making $45,000, $50,000 starting salary. But we start at $34,400. You can't compete with that. We're fortunate because we got people that live here, that love where they are, they want to be home, and they're doing the best that they can here. And I appreciate those people that decide to come to work here. I really do. But it doesn't make it any easier for them or for us. But we're going to continue to do the best we can. And we're doing good. I'm thankful. We're good. Do I need to keep on with everything I got, or just stop now and come back later, or what?
Well, we'll have to visit at a later date on what you're going to ask for.
That's budget. No, I wouldn't do that until budget time. But
Did you have something else?
just want to, I need to thank our legislators for their help. A couple of weeks ago, we had that opioid, we did an opioid presentation in McCall, and all of the legislators showed up. Senator Malloy, both representatives, and Congressman Fry could not make it, but he said that he could not get there, but I reached out to him, he could not make it. But all of them showed up, all of them participated, and they've agreed to help wherever they can. I've sent them a wish list, so they do have a wish list now, capital items that we need. And I think, according to all three that was there, they said that they've never been asked before, so they've been asked now. And I think that they will do what they can to help on this wish list that I've given them. There will be, and I invite all of you again, that we will be having another opioid, I won't say symposium, but a workshop at the Berea Center in March. It's either going to be the second or the third Sunday in March. And Representative Hennigan has asked to partner with us along with Trinity Behavior and AET, the Alcohol Enforcement Team, has agreed to come and help again. But I do need to thank Pastor Donald Deal and his church, and the mayor of McCall, and the police chief for all of their help in McCall. Wasn't a bunch of folks, but I think it was real productive. because it was an eye-opener for a lot of people that were there. And again, we will be having one in March, and I'll give you that date in March as soon as it comes about. I think I'm on there later on for the SRO, so I'll wait till that comes up, and I'll talk about the SRO when that comes up. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. All right, moving to the election of officers. I'll open the floor for nominations for chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Charles Paul Midget for chairman. It's been customary in the past, under past administrations, that the chairman and vice chairman serve a period of 2 years, even though this is it's just a custom that the council has gotten used to, and I nominate Charles Paul Midget, since he's only been serving 1 year, as chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I will nominate Dr. Damian Johnson for chairman of the seat of chairman.
Second.
Okay, I got a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? If there are no more nominations, is there a motion to close nominations?
Motion to close nomination.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of closing nominations? Okay. Any opposed? Dr. Johnson, did you raise your hand up the first time? I mean, you're in favor. You got the count?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we'll call to a vote, and we'll do it in the order they were announced. All in favor for Charles Midgley, raise their right hand. All right. All opposed? It's 3.
I abstain.
Okay. We got 4 for, 3 against, and 1 abstain.
4-3.
Fourth.
I think it would be 4-3-1. And
Right.
if I'm correct, Mr. Administrator, would that not leave Mr. Midgley as the chair?
I mean, they got to vote.
But I mean, once we see that, I mean, let's vote.
Right.
But not the vote carried at 4-3-1.
Okay, so the vote does carry.
Well, we're going to need to vote on it. Yeah.
Right, we're going on to vice chair.
Let's go for, no, let's vote for Dr. Johnson now.
Okay.
You still need to vote for him.
Right, of course. Okay, all right, I call forward to vote for Dr. Johnson. All in favor?
3.
I abstain.
Okay, all opposed? 4. Okay, have you got the count?
For Charles Paul Midgley, we have 4 in favor. For Dr. Johnson, we have 3 in favor.
Okay.
We have 1 abstain for Mr. Midgley, and we have 1 abstain for Mr. Johnson.
Okay, so Charles Midgley will be chairman.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to vice chair, I open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Jason Steen for vice chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Ken Strowman.
Okay.
I second.
All right, you got a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I move nominations come to a close.
I second.
And there's a second. All in favor of closing nominations? Okay, that's 8. Any opposed?
8.
All right. I will call to a vote in order they were called. All in favor for Jason Steen, raise your right hand. All opposed?
I abstain.
4, 3, and 1. Okay. Moving to Councilman Stroman. All in favor for Ken Stroman? Raise your right hand. Any,
I abstain.
all opposed? And the official count is 4 to Jason, 3 to Ken, and 1 abstain. So the vote carries for Vice Chairman to be Jason Steen. Okay, we will move to the approval of the minutes. We've got December's minutes as well we've got to approve. We made the changes. I hope everybody's looked over them.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we'll accept the minutes as written.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting the minutes?
I abstain because I could not vote on December 13th meeting.
You got that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all in favor for the minutes, there was any opposed? All right, moving to the December 13th regular council meeting.
Move to accept.
Second.
All right. Any abstentions on the vote?
I cannot vote for that, so
Right.
I abstain.
All right, all in favor? Got 7 and 1 abstention. Any opposed? All right, January 10th, regular council meeting.
Mr. Chair, I have a correction in the minutes, please.
Okay.
It stated that Ms. Lawson says to reappoint Ms. Julie Fuller as, in her position as chairman, on Planning Commission, and that was to appoint, not to reappoint.
Okay, any other corrections? All right, is there a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
So moved.
And there's a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, moving to the January 13th, the called council meeting.
I make a motion, we'll accept the minutes on the January 13th call meeting.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes as written? Unanimous, any opposed? Okay, moving along to old business, we've got recreation and community improvement initiatives.
Mr. Chairman, I have prepared something for workshop, which I think will happen eventually, but I will give an update on where we are with the Phase 1 items and nothing with the Phase 2 items, because I think that's part of the workshop that'll happen at a later time. You'll note that you should have in your, at your desk, 2 things with some color on it. And I'll get to those things in just a second. Well, actually, I'll get to the first one. The first one is one that has yellow and blue on it. So that's just a quick summary that gives you an idea of the money that's been allocated for the Phase 1 projects, and gives you an idea in yellow what's left for potentially for Phase 2 projects. So you can run down those and you can see that the portion that had been requested from the city of Bennettsville is removed from the equation. Also, there is a portion in there, and the partner portion for the Love Foundation contribution toward the purchase of the golf course, what can be the initial contribution.
And if you look in the next box, it ends with the yellow, you can see the source of the monies. So you have the ARPA money, the budget proviso, fund balance, and private foundation support, additional potential foundation support. So when you do all of that, you can see what you have left. And I think that's a good precursor to having that next discussion, that phase 2 discussion, so you kind of know where you are with the money. And then there's another item on the agenda in a minute that could be another source of money. So we have that, and I want to make sure you have that, and that's dated in the bottom right corner, so if you get another copy, you'll know, if something's changed. So with regards to phase 1, giving you an update on phase 1 items, the first item would be the boardwalk with the lake. Staff is preparing to solicit for proposals from contractors and engineers that can build this. The Lake Authority has received their money from the state. They had to do a few things because they're not as an established of an organization as the county is, so they had to do a few more things to actually receive that money from the state, and they have. They have suggested a maximum budget of around $400,000, both parts, our part and their part, which could potentially leave some money for phase 2. But I guess the first thing that's got to be done is the solicitation of proposals to see where you are with that. But potentially, I wanted to just highlight that there had originally been $350 allocated in this sheet to go towards that. So you may have a little bit of money that can go towards your phase 2 there. Interestingly, the Department of Natural Resources are on board. They're really enthusiastic about this project. In fact, they're going to lower the lake level on that side to the point that it'll save money in building this thing, because you can imagine trying to build this in the water, and they'll take it down to where it's dry. So that was encouraging. They do not seem to have any concern with building this. They would have potentially some hoops to jump through if you started filling in anything to make parking. That had been talked about. So we'll just see where that goes and then bring that information to council. But if we can avoid doing that, then it can be a very simple project. The goal is to try to get these RFPs and RFQs out and have something by mid-March, hopefully for the council meeting, so you can get this thing going. So that's the boardwalk project, and I know the Lake Authority, I've talked to Sully Blair, they're excited about that, and I've heard others in the public excited about it. The golf course project, we've had a couple of good meetings with other locations operating golf facilities. One meeting we went to see Rick Elliott at the beach, Senator Dick Elliott's son, that owns and operates 3 golf courses down there. Mr. Odom able to line that up for us, and it was very helpful and established a good relationship there, because there are things that from doing things every day that folks that haven't done this don't know. So that was very helpful, and will continue to be a good relationship to help us with that. And last week, I guess last Monday, we went, some of us went to the town of Kershaw, and that may be a nice field trip for council. The town of Kershaw owns their golf course. They have forever and ever and ever, and since the 30s. And they have gotten it to a point where it is a nice course and it breaks even, it's not a loss. And I think, that's the goal of the county's project, is to have a nice course that's a good municipal course that breaks even and allows us to expand, into youth programs and things like that. So that was a good experience, and they shared things that we needed to know. We've done a lot of research on our own, but when you can see somebody or touch where somebody's actually doing it, then that helps a lot. The official switchover for ownership would be March 1st. The current owners have agreed to just keep it rolling at the current level until the end of February, which was good. We are working to determine what kind of lead time there is on carts and equipment. We're finding from other people that could be as much as a year. Fortunately, in the agreement we have with the current owners, we can continue to use their carts for a fee. So we're looking into that, and actually probably need a little input from council and certainly golfers at some point at a workshop. We have posted 2 key positions, the outside manager and the inside manager, which they're actually all the manager, because there's not enough work there to have somebody who doesn't go out or doesn't come in. We've interviewed those and are currently making offers to hire these people. We found 2 very qualified people and hope they'll come on board. The swimming pool is being assessed by a professional person that knows about swimming pools. That way we'll know whether that's something that could be developed into something more, moving towards an aquatic type thing, or whether it's in such poor condition that you can't fix it. So we've got somebody that knows what they're doing coming in, and Wes has been handling that, and they do this. This is what they do. So we're hoping that'll be done in the next couple of weeks. That will give you good information to have when you have the workshop, because you'll know what you've got. And then the last thing on the golf course, there's this other sheet, and this is a list of the folks, the golfers that came to the meeting we had. And I would suggest that county council consider, I know you've had some discussions, but consider creating a little committee of golfers, and maybe even add some folks that are non-golfers that could give some input for us to be able to bounce ideas over, because we're going to have to come up with fees and structure things a little differently, and it would be nice to understand from the golfers what will help us and what will hurt us. So I provide that for information. I'm not suggesting or requesting any action now, but I think if you're going to have a workshop, that would be something good to put in place. And I think most of these folks on here, So that's the golf course. Any questions on that?
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wood.
With this recreational initiative, and we have a recreation director, Mr. Williams, is he have any input in this process?
Yeah, he has input. We have like a committee of people and staff that are all digging into this. His long-term responsibility will be the programming side of it, figuring out how to develop it and go after underserved groups and ages and all that. So all hands on deck to do this, because everybody has something to bring to the table. So yes, sir, that's the answer.
Mr. Monument?
Yes, ma'am.
In that meeting with these doctors, I like what the suggestion that Mr. Gould brought out, and it was plain to me, and I don't know whether you took notes on that, but suggested that the name be changed. He also suggested that the schools be involved in forming a golf program where our local high school, and I'm going to also encourage middle school to be a part of it. He also suggested that with golfing, that mentors, but the fees, to make sure that anyone, no matter what the age, no matter what the race, no matter what, that they can be able to participate in that golf initiative. I know I was not a voting member on that, but because it is a part of the issue now, I honestly want to see fairness on that everybody who wants to participate in golf have the opportunity where the fees are not so high that it's just for these experts here. And I appreciate these experts, but I would like to see them take a part of being mentors for people who want to learn that, have that opportunity. Because if it had not been for one of those men, Mr. Herbert Washington, taking the initiative to have my son play on that golf course and making sure he was a member of that golf course, he gave him golf equipment. A lot of these children will not have equipment. So things like that, that's important for me. And I'm sure it will be important for everybody in all along.
And we do have some notes from that meeting, and I'll distribute them to you all. I think that's the wise thing to look at the name. I think that's a workshop item. I'd hope you would consider keeping at least the Marlboro part of it so we have some identity there, but it's certainly not going to be a country club. It's a public course. And then as far as the involvement with the schools, our director, Darius Williams, that's one of the reasons that he stood out and was hired, is his expertise is outreach and developing programs and getting people contacted and together, and so that's a great idea.
We have a school board member here tonight, so maybe trying to partner with the school would be a good thing to do.
It would be a great thing.
Just make a note, the school has a golf team that is actively practicing right now. So that coordination is already there. Just enhancing that would be a great asset to the county.
And it may be even...
And including the young ladies, because I think at one time they were not included on the golf course, so I definitely would like to be sure that the young women are included with the golf field as of now.
Well, and you may, Mr. Chairman, you may even consider having the workshop out there, and then if you want to get out and walk around and look and kind of get a feel for things. Okay, I've made notes of all that, and I'll include them with the notes from the meeting so you can see those. And I want to make sure you had this, because these are all people we know, and it gives us somebody we know we can ask their opinion on things if we run across them.
Can we add
Mr.
some
Merlin.
other golfers on here if we think of some other people that we know play?
I think that's up to y'all. I just wanted to give you a starting point. This isn't even a suggestion of who, but we asked a few questions, you saw on the thing, and gives you something to look at.
Mr. Merlin, I would also like to possibly, there's 19 golfers on this thing to participate in that meeting that night, and I'd like to some way get back to them and thank them for their participation, because they were a big help with some of the suggestions and stuff that they made to us that night.
Okay.
I also like to ask for this committee to include, the council members on this committee, so we can report back to full council as to the progress that's being made.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had, so two quick things, and I'll try to speed it up. Broad Street property, I'm sorry, did you have, you're stretching, okay. Broad Street property is, the closing is targeted for next week. Field work has been completed, but we haven't gotten the assessment on things we need to get a demolition estimate, but we hope to have that soon. Once we have those budget numbers, and again in the workshop, because the city didn't choose to participate, then you have to look at what you have and what you can do. So we'll have that information for you so you can make decisions. One good thing is there's a Parks, Recreation, and Tourism grant that could be up to $500,000 that could go towards this because they encourage this kind of thing. The application period is August 23 now, and the award would be 2024. So, that just shows how on any of these things that y'all are considering is to make sure you have them where they're scalable, where, okay, we can do this now, but let's make sure we do things in a way that when we get more money, we can make things even better. You don't do something that you'd have to undo to go forward, because money like that could really make a difference. And you can see on the summary sheet again, there's a 650 in there, and we had hoped for 650 from the city.
Who is our grant writer?
Just right now, finance or whoever's, Sheriff's Department does some, that kind of thing. A different topic, but certainly something that needs to be considered in the regular county budget process is could we get someone that's a grant writer and not a grant administrator? Right now, we're doing, Ms. Lawson and I talked about this, we're doing a lot of administering, because a lot of these grants are the easy ones that come to you, and it's a lot of paperwork. We need someone who goes out and finds the ones that are out there. So I think that's a great thing to put on, for your budget process. And then the last thing I had on there was the splash pad, and y'all can correct me, but I think since the city's not participating, and you kind of don't know exactly where you would want to put that, it would be my recommendation to get the pool assessment back from the country club, and then bring all that information to your workshop, and y'all hash out what you want to do with that. So we'll get you as much information as we can to help you make a decision on what to do.
And I understand that assessment is like March 3rd? I don't know if...
March 1st is...
March 1st?
Yeah, they're going to make a site visit.
How long will it take them to come back to us?
I think it's fairly quick. Within a few days.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Moore? All right, if not, we'll move to new business. A request to approve a notice of application for a state-issued certificate of franchise authority and request for information.
Mr. Chairman, this is kind of an interesting one. If you've been out in the country lately, you've seen a lot of people pulling cable, underground cable. And at first, you'd think it's Sandhills pulling the internet cable. But a lot of it seems to be Spectrum coming into the county. You've heard that name from relatives or friends that live in other areas. So they are making a hard push to come in and compete. And in order to do that, they have to go to the state and go through the proper paperwork. And that comes to you, and at that time, you're allowed to add a franchise fee. And so we've determined the maximum that you can ask for is 5% of their gross proceeds. And you're going to say, well, how much is that? I don't know right now. But we do need to respond to it. So what we've done is filled out the form and bring it to you to ask for the max, which is 5%. So there could be some revenue there. The good thing is competition always helps with prices. So, if we see folks in here, and I think they also provide internet service. So you got We've gone from, we're talking 6% of the county having internet to 62%, and this might take us over the edge.
Fiber.
Internet fiber. So our request, Mr. Chairman, is for the council to approve us responding to the application with the maximum franchise fee amount of 5%.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Second. All right, all in favor? It's unanimous. Any opposed? All right, moving along to ordinance 833, a ordinance to amend the agreement for the development of a joint county industrial and business park of Dillon and Marlboro counties so as to enlarge the park. Title only.
Mr. Chairman, this is one that's always tricky because it doesn't mean a plot of land anywhere. It's a legal agreement between two counties, and by doing this, it allows the county that has the actual industry to provide greater incentives and also control the distribution of the tax monies. So we've been the host of this, and we've been the return the favor person. In this case, Dillon County has a project, and they're asking county to allow to continue with that agreement for them. Now, in return, we get like 1% of the revenue from the project. It never amounts to much of anything, but it's just a token kind of thing there. The way it helps us too is if we have a project like most of the projects we have, even in the past, it gives you the ability also to retain 10% of the proceeds and put it in an economic development fund that helps you when you need to do something and helps pay for some economic development things. So this is title only. They're not going to tell us the project details till the end, as you can imagine, because it's confidential. I'd request that you approve title only. If you have questions, particularly new folks, we can get you more information or try to explain it better than that at the second reading.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we'll say ordinance number 833.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
I abstain because I would like to know more.
Okay, we got one abstention.
Just title only.
I still kind of want to know some more about it.
And any opposed? One abstention, 7 in favor. Okay, moving along to the request from Representative Patricia Hennigan for items to include in her request for the state budget.
Mr. Chairman, I received an email from Representative Hennigan asking, as last year, if the county wants to request something in the state budget. And, as you're well aware, last year we requested like $5 million, but we ended up with $2 million, which was really good. I wanted to bring it to you all so that you had input into it. I had thought that maybe the workshop would allow you to be more specific, but to be quite honest, last year it was very general. I mean, it was just recreation projects in Marlboro County. So I believe that we need to go ahead and give her something as a placeholder. But I believe that you can go back and fine tune it at a later time. The way the money has come from the last time is it came to county council and you were able to determine exactly where you want to spend it. So it didn't come and say this is for this. So I just need direction. I can fill it out. I can put recreation initiatives in Marlboro County. I can put $5 million. I can put $10 million. I can do whatever. And then hopefully in a workshop or something, we can come up with more details if we need more details to back up the request. But it's a timely thing because she needs to get that placeholder in the budget, I guess is the way you say it.
Before March.
To get the ball rolling, I think we need to go ahead and just do a request like we did last year. I'll bump it up to 8 million, and then we might get 4 million, so. That's my suggestion.
I like how you think.
You want to make that as a motion?
So move. Yes, sir. I'll put that in motion.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Any opposed? All right, is that everything on that? Moving to the fire department, air pack replacement?
Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, even if it's just from watching TV, all the firemen have air packs they put on and masks in order to be able to go into fires or do different things. So we're faced with a situation where a lot of the ones we have, if not all of them, have become uncertifiable. So you go, every so often, and they come in and test them, and they certify them. And so the process or the standards that are now in place this year will not allow them to be recertified. To replace all of them is going to cost about $800,000, a lot of money. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that we have worked for the last 6 years to make sure we have a reserve in our rural fire tax fund. Your rural fire tax fund is a dedicated millage. You see it on your tax bill that can only be used for rural fire. Council couldn't even go and try to take some and do something else with it. It has to be used for that. So right now, we're sitting on a reserve of about $1 million. Now, with reserves, with fund balance reserves, typically you want to target to have about 5 or 6 months of what it costs to run something in reserve. So if it costs $1 million to run all the fire stuff in a year, then you want to try to keep $500,600,000 in reserve. So you have an amount greater than the target reserve. So, but at the same time, hate to deplete that reserve to that level if we can help it, because you have other issues that are pending, trucks and different capital items that also could become an item in a hurry. This department is different than if the copy machine burns up in the administration building, it costs, $2,500 to buy a copy machine. If we had a tornado and knocked out a fire station, to buy engines and pumpers and all these things like that can cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So because of that risk, you want to try to retain reserves. So West Park and I have been working, and our recommendation is that you use about $300,000 out of reserve. And that then we then go out and get a lease purchase type agreement and finance the rest over 5 years. That's a typical thing that we've done. We do it with cars and police cars and trucks. It will have no impact on the general fund because it's all in its own little silo of rural fire money. So what we can answer any questions, but the recommendation is that we be given permission to proceed with taking that 300 and go ahead and buying what we need to right now, but then y'all's vote, if you're agreeable, is also the first reading to approve a lease purchase. And we'll go out and go to the banks and get a rate and come back to you all, and you'll have to vote 2 more times for that. But the 300 will let us handle some, and then the other will go real fast to handle the rest. So your options are that, or just to buy it all out of reserve. Those are your options.
Mr. Minister, I would assume too, if we worked it out to buy them all at one time, I'm sure we could probably get a great discount to service the whole fire department, every county, whether it's, I don't know how many total firemen we have, whether it's 100 or 200, if we could buy all of the air packs at one time. They are very expensive, and plus when we got ready to, they would be on the same timeline as far as the time period, the life of the air packs would all be on the same time frame. So when they came up again, we would be looking at all of them at the same time.
That's a big hit, though.
Well, I mean, kind of conversely, it'd be nice to stagger them. I think we've kind of got hit with something we didn't want to get hit with. I would think that if we overcome this, that when we bring the budget to you all, that you consider setting aside some along, just for this purpose, because this is always coming up. It's going to come back around. Now we have a reserve, but it'd be nice to have one that's sort of dedicated to that. It's sitting there. Because when people see a reserve, they want to buy stuff. We need to set this aside.
Each fire department have their own account. We know that. Could they dip in to some of their own account, and then we do a matching with that? What they got, because some of the fire departments have more members than others. Just like I said, just the early stages. Give an option. I agree with you. We can't go to the general fund and just take everything out but $200,000. Then we get a tornado, and then we in a situation. We got to go to another general fund. But you get the numbers and bring it back to us and see what we can do, and see what other fire department would like to do. They might want to kick in themselves.
Well, just being on one of the fire departments, I think the thing is that the packs are out of date, so they've expired. So when the tester was coming along, and so usually you can hydro them, and so they'll pass, and so this time they didn't pass. So whenever they started filling, so it's a life-saving thing. It's just like, I mean, almost like the sheriff with his car. You got to do something to be able to get them. So when they get to a house and somebody's in there, if they don't have a pack, you know, you can't go in. So it's only the pack and the bottle. So, you know, all of it's one thing. You know, I do think it's a good thing that Mr. Bird says, you know, you're going to have to buy all of them at one time because all of them goes out. ISO says you got to have so many packs per truck, you know, to go out. You got to have so many trucks in each area to keep the ISO rating down. It is a money racket. I mean, you know, that's the kind of thing, but, you know, I think we'll have to buy a lot, you know, if the 300,000 would get us, I don't know how many 300,000 would probably get some of all the fire departments get going, and then as immediately as possible, see how fast you can get the loan to purchase the rest of them. You know, it's one of those things, you know, it's, you can have the water without the hose, it ain't doing you no good. So, you know, this is a life-saving thing. So, I think it's very important. I really would like for, you know, to have it brought back to, I guess, the fire committee with the fire chiefs to come back as a plan, a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan to start replacing some of these things whenever they actually do come up to the life expectancy, or if there is a time whenever they actually looking at possibly not passing inspection. But you know, at this time I think it's very important. I mean, I know a lot of them was off the Wallace trucks had to be pulled off because they didn't pass the test, so there's no use. So I mean, so it's, and I think all the departments are in the same boat. You know, you bought them a long time ago, you run them, I think they applied for some grants, hoping some grants would apply for it, and that fell through. So, you know, if the grant would have come through, we wouldn't be in this situation. But, you know, that's the part of the grant, you hope it falls through. So, I think it's a need for the life-saving equipment for those air packs at this time.
Well, you strategically, over the past 5 or 6 years, tried to move away from just giving, not just fire departments, but anybody, just giving people money and then they go and do their own thing, but start to use money, council use money for things that everybody's got to have, like this. So, you know, even though it's like you say, you know, maybe they can kick in, this is one of the items that you probably ought to be just buying. So that's out of the equation, because you can't not run without these. You can't not run with trucks. I could see a point to where you get involved with figuring out how to have the trucks on a cycle, you know, when it's coming out of county money. But to your point, Councilman Steen, I think this is sort of an emergency situation, so we need to at least move forward with as much as we can.
Was there a motion to follow staff's recommendation?
Motion, Mr. Chairman, that we take $300,000 out of the fire reserve fund and contact each department and I guess prorate it out over the departments. So each department is going to get something out of it, and an initial purchase of the. Is that? No. I think what we're asking is for y'all to give us the money to buy everybody an air pack. We get the 800,000. Yeah, and three of it come out of reserve. Right, man, 300 to come out of the fire reserve.
I mean, it's just one of these things that, you know, you could talk about it, but they got to have this.
Yeah. Do we have the motion?
That is my motion. I was mainly just saying 300 out of the fire fund and the balance so that we get all of them, I guess, at one time.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if there's a second.
Yeah, second.
Okay. Clark, did you get the motion?
I'll go back on the table.
Okay. All right, so is there, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous? Any opposed? All right, moving along to the approval of grant to assist with school resource officer program.
Mr. Chairman, the sheriff here, he can come up, but basically he's identified some grant funds that will help recover some of the costs of the SRO program. Is the sheriff still there? Oh, there he is. I'm sorry. So this is you know, a technicality to make sure we're following policy and we can go after those grants.
All right, thank you again. I will say this in defense of the fire department. If the ISO ratings are up, the premiums go down, and I think that helps the county as a whole. That's something to always remember. If your numbers are right, your premiums go down, and I think the citizens of Marlboro would really appreciate that. That's in favor of the fire department. Something to think about. When it comes to SROs, y'all know that we acquired McCall and Clowes schools this year. And as a result of that, in the past, funding was being given to Clowes and McCall, and we could not do anything initially because anything that was done would have been supplanting the money from McCall and Clowes. As a result, we were able to do a grant this year for Clowes and McCall with the school district, and as a result, we are now just finishing a grant proposal for $303,126 to be exact, for 2 SROs, and that takes care of everything in Clowes and McCall, all equipment plus the salaries for 2 officers. We're pretty certain that the grant will be approved. The only difference will be then we'll have to go back to the school district to redo a new contract for the existing schools now in Blenheim and Wallace, just to upgrade their salaries. But that would have to be an agreement. Amend the contract that we have now with Blenheim and Wallace to increase the salaries for the 2 SROs out of their schools. And I don't think that would be a problem. But we just need you to okay the grant that we just finished, and I'm quite sure it should be approved. They being the captain and sergeant and all of our guys have worked real hard to get that done, and it's been done. And as a matter of fact, we're ready to turn it in. We just need you to need your blessings to get it in. And it is a state-funded grant. The money will come to us, and it's just like we just did with the federal grant. Everything will go into West, and we will start another account just for the SROs, and the money comes from the state. We pay them, and it's ongoing. There's nothing there that we have to do except accept the money, and it's ongoing forever. Hopefully, we'll be able to make the change with the other 2 schools next year. So that won't be any cost to the county at all for any money. That's the idea. We got it figured out. Just need approval. Or your blessings.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we give them our blessing.
Question,
Yes, sir.
that covered vehicles as well?
Everything.
Everything.
When I say everything, I mean everything. There's nothing, including any training or anything that we go to. It pays for everything. There's no cost to the county.
I see when that contract was written, I wrote it, and he was on the other side. He was at the school district, so it's pretty all-inclusive, and I think we can survive with it for a while. But finance staff, administrative staff is in full support of this grant as well.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sheriff McNeil, and maybe this is just a question out of the blue I need to ask, but the SRO officer is there for the school hours, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
School time. So during the summer, where will the
It's 12 months.
12 months?
The contract is for 12 months. So the school has access to an officer when school is out. And I can say it now this way because there's always after-school programs
Okay.
during the summer, so there's officers there. But we know beginning next school year, it'll be around all year-round school throughout the county. So they'll still be available, but it's for 12 months. So those officers stay there year-round. They never leave. That's just
Is it a dedicated officer, or is it, do they
Say again?
rotate? Is it a dedicated officer, or do they
No, they're
rotate?
dedicated. We just have one specific officer at every school. One supervisor is at McCall, and then the other 3 schools have regular SROs. But there is one supervisor.
Okay.
And yes, ma'am.
We'll ask for a motion again on order.
I'll second Mr. Wood's motion. So you have a motion and a second.
All right, all in favor? Unanimous? Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
All right, moving to Resolution 022301, a resolution urging support of cost of animal care legislation, HB 3682 and SB 456.
Mr. Chairman, Donald Hamilton will speak to this.
Good evening, council. I am with code enforcement, and that's building codes, environmental control, and animal control. The days of dog catcher are gone. animal control and law enforcement is way more involved in dog catching we do, but that's chasing a endless problem. And I'm the type where y'all hired me to do the job, I'm gonna do the absolute best I can, and I'm gonna do what's required. So part of that was we got involved with the sheriff's office to get us trained. The county, we formed a Department of Public Services to commission animal control officers. We got certified as Class 3 advanced. We can carry a gun, handcuffs. We got arrest powers for animal crimes, littering with the state laws. We can enforce those state laws only as a Class 3 officers. The command staff of the sheriff's office has been great to work with. Officers, investigators, deputies have helped. They'll fill in and help anytime we need. So that took it to a different level. And I started getting involved with just reaching out, trying to learn as much as I could, and that led me to a colleague with the Humane Society of the United States, the state director, and she helped us different things, and then that led to, we just got to talking, and from Horry County around the coast to Chesterfield, we started a PD Regional Animal Task Force. County officers, deputies, police officers, SLED, FBI, USDA, Inspector General's Office, Humane Society, just any agency that we could put in. We meet monthly in person, we try to. We've done a Zoom once. So we're building a network we can call on when we have something. That something is going to be a fighting ring, maybe a hoarding case, a cockfighting bust we've had in the past. And the resources to handle that is just nuts. And it's crazy what it takes to handle that. Chesterfield County just had what I would call a very small one. I think maybe this weekend it was 13 dogs and 9 puppies. That's small for a fighting ring. Horry County just had a second for the same guy. It was 50-something dogs. Okay, so we, warrants and all that, we get into this dog fight ring and bust it. We've got 51 dogs that are ours until that judge bangs the gavel. 3 years, 4 years, however long, they're ours to feed, to house, to walk. Every person makes a note when they take it in the yard, out the yard, because it's evidence. The dogs are evidence we can't get rid of. So, the issue now, there is a state law, and so I'll get off track. If I don't do it, I'll be as quick as I can. Raise your hand if it gets too long. When the individual is arrested for animal cruelty, such as severe neglect or intentional abuse, dog fighting or cockfighting, law enforcement officers are responsible for the abused animals that are seized. In most cases, the court determines the seizure was lawful and it is not safe for the animals to be in the custody of the defendant/owner while they await trial. Current law requires seizing law enforcement agency, which would be here, Marlboro County Public Services, versus the sheriff's office. Now, they would be involved, but we would actually be in charge of that seizure. So the custody of us, maintain custody of the animals until the disposition of the criminal case, which typically takes years. So the issues from a few viewpoints, the taxpayer. The majority of the law enforcement agencies do not run their local shelter. That's us, we don't run ours. They typically contract with a local nonprofit, which is the Humane Society, to provide care within the jurisdiction. Whether law enforcement runs a shelter or the city or county pays a contract with the nonprofit, the cost of care for the animals involved in these lawful seizures is ultimately paid by the taxpayer instead of the animal owners, who should be legally held responsible for the care of their animals. From the viewpoint of a law enforcement officers often struggle to police animal crimes because the shelters are full. For example, here we've got 36 dog kennels, 6 puppy cubby holes, and then room for maybe 60 or 70 cats. We took in about 1,600 animals last year. So that's how many times those 36 dog runs, and it was over right at 1,000 dogs. So 36 holes turned over to get 1,000 dogs. So if we capture a dog fighting bus with 36 plus dogs, we're done. We can't take any more animals. Now, the staff there has always said, the director, don't let space get in your way of doing the job. And I won't. And she'll find somewhere to get the dogs. So it makes it difficult for law enforcement to pursue that when they know, we don't have to put these dogs, it's going to cost thousands, we don't know what to do with them. So this would eliminate that. From the shelter standpoint, 3 counties in South Carolina do not have an animal shelter at all. For the counties who have one, their facilities are beyond capacity to manage the other issues they are tasked with, such as stray dogs, owner surrenders, and ultimately this can lead to adoptable animals being euthanized for space to be made for long-term court holds. Quick aside, the shelter here is a no-kill certified shelter, not to say if a dog's injured or it's bitten 3 people that it won't be euthanized humanely, but they don't euthanize for space, they just won't do it. You'll probably see something more about that on March the 8th around noon at the Humane Society if you're interested. So from the standpoint of being inhumane, counties throughout South Carolina have held animals for years under the current law. It's inhumane to maintain the animals of the shelter environment in this manner. The animals typically suffer stereotypical behavior from being housed in shelters for this extended period, which drastically affects their ability to have a chance at rescue or adoption once the case is concluded. Fight dogs are super sweet. All they want is to please their human. They're not mean dogs. They hate other dogs. And they don't hate them. They're excited to do their job. They're doing their job to the best of their ability, which is to fight. But they are sweet dogs. We've got one through no fault of the sheriff's office or Marlboro County or anybody associated. It was actually a reporter that got us in some. Basically, they botched the search before we did the search, but we got the dogs a different route. And Peggy had both. I wish I could have brought her. Both of her front legs were purposefully broken. She was a fighting dog. Her days were done, but she had great traits. She wanted to breed her. They broke her legs, and she walks on these nubs. And she was a breed dog. She wanted that bloodline. She was chained in the woods with another dog like her and a Rottweiler, amongst trash piles and everything else, dead bodies wrapped in paper and plastic and blankets, fight dogs. But that case, that ship sailed, we missed it. But we'll figure it out. But anyway, that dog is perfectly adoptable. She was adopted, but that was 21, so that court case may be heard in 2024 if we were lucky. So we'd feed her, house her, vet her, get her prosthetics because we can't let her suffer, whatever. All at our expense. So the current law, the process outlined below, is only applicable in cases where enough probable cause has been established by law enforcement to seize animals and arrest their owner for violations of Title 47-140, which is animal cruelty, Title 16-2730, which is dog fighting, 16-17-650, which is cockfighting. It is important to note that we are not talking about situations such as those involving stray animals, custody disputes, animals rescued from a natural disaster, pets in need. So the day in, day out, dogs and cats coming in the shelter are not affected by this. We got means to move them, 10-day stray holds, owner surrender, sign a paper, and they can be moved. We're only talking about Section 47, Title 16, basically dog fighting, cockfighting, severe neglect or abandonment. It should be noted that custody determined here is whether the owner should get the animals back at the time or whether the seizing agency should maintain them until the disposition of the case. It is not determining permanent custody, so future ownership of the animal. If the seizing agency is awarded custody, the agency must provide care for them until the conclusion of the criminal case. And some law enforcement agencies run their own shelter. The majority of situations involve the city, county paying to contract with a nonprofit shelter in their area. Under the current law, the issue of cost of care is addressed in Section 47-145, which requires a seizing agency within 30 days of obtaining custody to provide a good faith estimate of what it will cost to care for the animal. A judge presents such cost to the owner/defendant and explains that if he or she is found guilty, they will be required to pay that amount or that at any time prior to the adjudication, the defendant can forfeit the animal and avoid paying the cost at the end of the prosecution process. So after 2 years of us taking care of them, they can say, we don't want it all. And we just eat it. We eat that 2 years of care. So the solution proposed in House 3682 and Senate 456, we're proposing a more effective and fair way to address the cost of care by implementing a bonding and forfeiture model. This will require a defendant to pay for the ongoing care of their animals being housed in the shelter. If they fail to pay for that cost, the animals are automatically forfeited to the seizing agency, which allows them to move on to adoptions, rescues, or other appropriate dispositions of the animal. So they do not to be held throughout the court process in the shelter. This alleviates the cost of the taxpayers, empowers law enforcement to properly police animal crimes, and helps shelters manage their population properly. In the proposed legislation, Criminal charges involving the seizure of animals would trigger a civil hearing within 10 to 15 days of the seizure. The judge will review the lawfulness of the seizure, and if the seizure is determined to be lawful, the shelter will provide the cost of care sufficient to cover all costs for 30 days starting at the date of seizure. This bond, that cost for each animal, the bond will be required to be paid by the defendant every 30 days while the case is pending. Failure by the defendant to pay that bond will result in the forfeiture of the animals to the seizing agency. The defendant may surrender the animals at any point to avoid having to pay the recurring bond. In cases where only one animal is seized, the owner is able to provide or to prove indigency. The court has discretion and may reduce or waive the requirement for the owner to pay the cost of seizure.
Mr. Hamilton, excuse me, you're just asking for
We're just asking for
the
a
money to
resolution,
keep the
support,
animals?
a resolution to ask our state delegation to support.
Well, and will this affect the county in the money coming from?
Under the proposed model, if we seize 30 animals, we determine it's gonna cost $50, or what, let's say $200 a month to care for each animal.
Right.
They pay it the first month. The third month, they don't pay the $200 per animal. The animals are automatically surrendered by not paying that bond on those animals. So under the proposed legislation, the amount you'll ever eat is 29 to 30 days if they don't pay that 30-day bond. Under the current law, if we hold those animals for 3 years and they have a trial and they're found guilty, they're our animals, and we've held them for 3 years. In 36 holes or dog runs, we've had 51 dogs that we couldn't get rid of. So all those 1,000 dogs that need to come in couldn't. We couldn't do anything with them because we had to hold these. Once we serve that warrant, we own it. We own the animals, we own it. We have to do it.
And so, I guess in general, with the House bill and the Senate bill, what it was saying is if you take on those animals at a certain time, the owner would have to pay for the bill. If they didn't, they would have to relinquish the dog to the authority to be able to adopt it out. So that's what the two bills were really, supportive of. I guess in the general.
They're just creating that 30-day bond that recurs every 30 days. That defendant has to pay that bond on all the animals, or say we're relinquished animals, they're yours.
That's, both of those bills say that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why there was one introduced in each chamber, but it happened.
So there's nothing that's costing the county anything, we just want support?
We're just asking for our delegation to support it. It's a
Anybody have
huge deal if you get a fighting case, and it's only a matter of time before we have one here. I hope it's sooner than later.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt Resolution 02-2301.
Second.
And there's a second, all in favor? That's unanimous, no opposed, anybody opposed?
Thank y'all for your support too,
All right.
always.
All right, thank you. Moving along to the appointments to boards and commissions. Consideration of request from Marlboro County Economic Development Partnership Board.
We got one appointment, appoint Mr. Anthony Ridges to the
Well, let's go, we got that next one on the,
board. Okay.
So we just, vote, we gotta vote on the recommendations, and I think they gave us last month. Do we have a copy of those?
No, I just looked and it did not have a copy. I
But
apologize.
it's the same names that were on that list, that came from Marlboro County Economic Development Partnership Board.
Mr. Chair, I would like to have some discussion before we call for a vote on that.
Okay, we can discuss that now.
Okay. I do appreciate the list. I still have my list. As a matter of fact, I have my list. But I want to make it put for the record. I do appreciate everything that's on that list. But I went back 12 years and looked at Marlboro County unemployment rate. Marlboro County has spent the highest 12 years or more, really. And I'm not trying to throw shade to anyone, but the sad thing for me, I'm looking at that list, and I see a lot of people named on that list who've been on that board since even 14, 16 years. And for me, on District 4, I want the opportunity, because people have come to me who are business people who would like the opportunity to serve. I'm not trying to shut down the whole list, but I would like to offer up names for anybody who's on that list who's serving in District 4. And I don't think that's too much to ask, because I do appreciate that, but I want that opportunity.
Well, You can do it in a vote tonight. We need to vote on it.
Based on an ordinance, so if you want to change the ordinance, you'd have to put the ordinance up and you'd have to vote for.
And that's why I was saying all along, we need to review our ordinance and our procedures, because for that, I knew that was a part of that. But I'm sitting here with something that's been in place for me throughout for the 24 years. And I'm not sitting here like that. I need to make my own stand. I want to be able to make decisions and make recommendations and agree that I need that step for myself and from the people in my district now.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I want to know on the boards and commissions that Ms. Lawson is talking about, each commission, each board is separate, they have their separate bylaws, so they have their own ordinance. So somebody can serve for 20 years or 30 years.
No, there's, you know, there's another work session kind of thing.
Right.
Everyone has some kind of stipulations typically how many times you can serve and that kind of thing.
I make a motion, we table that vote until we have an opportunity to review the ordinance and see if there's any changes that might need to be made before we move forward with that vote.
And I second that.
Okay. So we have a motion to table this decision. In a second. All in favor? All right, we got 1, 2. Have you got the count?
6.
I'm against.
Jason?
No, I would vote in favor of it tonight.
I would vote in favor of this, so I'm voting against.
The table
Opposed,
Yeah.
Yeah, most opposed.
Yeah. Okay. Now, all opposed. How about that?
There you go.
Okay, we got 2 opposed. All right, you got the count. Okay, now we're going to the council appointments and reappointments to existing boards.
I'd like to appoint Anthony Ridges to the Economic Development Board. And I think I have one appointment, right?
You just voted to not to do anything, and now you're gonna vote to put somebody on it.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no.
You definitely need to do it. I think Dr. Johnson's motion was you need to review these
table
ordinances.
the whole
You don't have a
discussion.
district
Okay,
appointment to that
the whole
board.
It's not a
discussion,
district.
okay.
As it's set up now, I don't believe it's.
And what I can do is I can make you, it'll be thick, but I'll make y'all a booklet that has the ordinance for each one, and then you can
Okay,
look through it, and if you have a work session, then we can go through that.
okay, all right.
That particular board doesn't have a person from each district.
Are there any other council appointments or reappointments?
Does that mean everything?
No, that's just the economic
Okay,
development partnership.
well, I do have some names that I would like to bring forth, and I have their phone numbers and address, sir, so when I give it to you, you can have everything.
Typically, what we do is the clerk will take those and make sure that if it says they had to be in the district, they are, all that. We'll check it out before we send a letter out on your behalf.
I thought we can also go cross-district if we
Yes,
could.
we did make.
On some of them you can, and some of them you can't, again.
All right, well, let me start with Parks and Recreation. And the young man, he's here, he's come before council, Mr. Boston, that he really want to be active in this community, and I really want to have you consider Mr. Boston, he's here. Library Board, I got the recommendation from Miss Bobby Joe, and also the young lady works and volunteer there, her name is Miss Tawana Poe. As for planning, we've already given Miss Judy Fuller. But for zoning and appeal board, have a young lady who's now a real estate person, lives in this community, want to be a part of this community. Her name is Valerie Love Bethay, and I have information about her.
Okay. Did you get that, Susan?
We'll get it off of there.
I'll second. Oh, you have another one too?
Yeah, I'd like, Tasha Pierce, she's already on there, I'd like to reappoint her on there with the library board.
Are there any other appointments? All right, well, we don't need to vote on that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
We
it.
need to vote. all-
Be a second and a vote.
You wanna take both of those in one motion, I'll second both motions. Can we
I
do
make a
it?
motion that we accept the names from Councilwoman Lawson and Councilman Blackman of their appointment to the board.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? Is there any Any opposition? Okay, moving to acceptance of bids. Do we have anything?
No, sir, none tonight.
Okay. Reports. Finance report, Mr. Westpark.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, council members. You have the report for the period ending January 31, 2023. As of that date, revenues totaled $6,482,394 in comparison to $6,093,966 for the prior year. General fund expenditures through January 31, 2023 totaled $7,953,527 of a $13,904,125 budget, or 57.2% of budget year to date. General fund expenditures totaled $6,690,541 for the same 7-month period for the prior year ending January 31, 2022. In conclusion, revenues are up in comparison to the prior year. However, they're not up as much as expenditures have increased for the current year we're in.
So we're about $1 million over from this year?
We're about $1 million difference in expenditures. We're $400,000 increase in revenue, so it's about a $600,000 net change. So anyway, we'll obviously know better as we get closer to the end of this fiscal year. Sometimes there are some timing issues. I think one of the things we have seen in general is the fact that we have been able to fully staff positions. In prior years, staffing has contributed a lot to the reduction in expenditures during the year. So that's probably the most significant item that I've seen in just looking at the financial statements at this point.
What's the forecast, Mr. Parks? Given that, staffing has increased to full position, what's the forecast knowing that we're already $600,000 kind of?
Well, I think when we get to the end of the year, we're probably going to end up having to use some of our general fund reserves in order to close out the fiscal year. And of course, that was budgeted. The expectation is that we try to make that up by, a lot of times it has been a reduction in, staffing the positions as a result of just not being able to fill certain slots.
I have
Any
a
other
question,
questions?
Mr. Parks.
Yes, ma'am.
Help me to understand, recreation, item 4510 on your first sheet, and then on your second sheet at the bottom, recreation. One budget item of a $6,000 budget item, and the other with a total of $451,000 and plus. Question I have, recreation, our recreation department that has to with the teams, is that a two separate budget? Is that a separate budget for the people who are like these commissions with these teams? Is that a separate budget?
Well, one thing we do have is we've got a separate bank account to manage, small incidental expenses for the registrations, for example. We just looked at that the other day, and we had roughly about $6,000 in that particular account. And of course, we end up including that in our annual financial statement at the end of the fiscal years. But one thing we do is there is an account separate just for collecting the $25 registration fees.
So with I'm concerned because one of the commission has come to the council, complain about they're not having any monies, and I know that we're gonna have new people going to those council. Do they have a budget?
general fund budget is for the recreation program that is administered by the county. However, if you're looking at probably some of those, are you saying some of the commissioners that are in some of the other geographic areas within the county?
There's nothing in the county's ordinances that creates local commissions. They're kind of something that's been around.
No, I don't mean for them, but for their area, you know, like they're talking about equipment, and they're saying they don't have equipment, they don't have an equal share. So do they have any type budget that they have? Let's say if I'm in the Bennettsville area, and I'm in the McCall area, and my area, do they have any type budget?
One of the discussions that we've been having with the new recreation director is the whole concept of fees and what fees actually support, and whether or not they're either adequate or whether or not there needs to be more subsidy to provide for things like uniforms for balls and bats and different, equipment. And I think that's going to be a part of our discussion in the budget process
So
for
it
the
will be
upcoming
something
year.
that comes
It's
up.
all to try to simplify and answer your question, it all comes out of the same budget. And it's the responsibility of the recreation director to make sure that everybody has what they need.
Okay.
And we've had some instances with football where we had to go buy pads and all that. So it's not necessarily a lack of funds, because y'all budget for that. It's more of a making sure that we're doing our job and know what needs to be done here and there. And we've had to play catch up a little bit with the football in Clyde, but it's all the same budget.
That's basically what I wanted
Yes,
to
ma'am.
know.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Park. Administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman, as we do at each meeting, we recognize employee anniversaries greater than 5 years of service. In January, we have a handful. Sonia Calder with 5 years, Councilman Odom with 6 years, Councilman Midgley with 6 years, Lisa Herndon with 7 years, Johnny Lewis with 7 years, Tracy Polson with 10 years, Joy Williams with 10 years, although she retired and came back, so sometimes it starts it over. She's got a lot more than 10 years. Councilman Steen with 12 years, Councilman Woods and Blackman with 16 years, and the coroner, Tim Brown, with 38 years. We've seen a lot of dead people in that time period. With regards to some administration-type activities, as you know, the countywide cleanup day is back on the top of the list. Councilwoman, Ms. Lawson, is hot after that, and it's time for us to do that in full force again. So after conversations with her, and you can correct me if I say it wrong, is to attempt to have a Saturday date, but have the ability for teams and crews to do things in the week prior.
Right.
So the date that's targeted right now, and we need feedback if it's not good, is Saturday, March 25th. I think that's what we spoke about.
We spoke on that, and I want to add that I did make an attempt to the Mayor of McCall. I attended their meeting. I made an attempt with the Mayor of Bennettsville to be a part of their agenda to include the city of Bennettsville in this cleanup. They are having an Easter egg hunt on the 25th, and that's a big thing for the city. I don't know how they'll feel about going to the next week. I'm not sure, without having to make so many changes. Because we will have the event at Lindsay Park for the celebration, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know the feedback, but I hope that the council will consider that. Let's be sure that we can include all the towns. I did talk to Mayor Bobby Brock. He said he definitely would like their town involved. Hoping to go to Clio City Council meeting to encourage them to be a part. But especially because Bennettsville is our hub,
Right.
we really do want their city council people to be participants of this event. So if the council, if there could be an alternate date, if the 25th doesn't seem to work out, could we look at maybe having the next week, if we don't have anything on the calendar for the use of Lindsay Park, and have it on April 1st for the big day? I don't know whether things are already there. I don't know.
I guess the county, from the staff concern, the only thing is the
Okay.
snakes. But unless somebody on council has a very strong opinion about it, that's no problem. We could do it the 25th or the 1st. Does anyone have any strong opinion about the dates? Okay, well, then we'll coordinate. And the intent is to do it like the first couple of times we did it, where we go all out. And Councilwoman Lawson was at the school at the time, and she brought a bunch of folks in doing that. So we're glad she'll be there to push along. And what we'll do is we'll sign up teams, and we'll have assigned areas. The teams can have some preference. If they have a preference, we can recognize that. And then we'll have the materials, the bags, the picker-uppers, the vest, some T-shirts, that kind of thing.
And gloves.
And gloves. And something to chase the snakes away. The budget process will start soon, beginning next month. We'll start to gather information, already kind of are, and putting everything together as a starting point, and then go out to the department heads, department level budgets for their request. Once we assemble all that, then we can bring council information for you to discuss. And typically, for those of you who are new, we try to come in and say, okay, what will it cost for the same level of what we're doing now next year? So what's going up, we can't help. Sometimes it's insurance, sometimes it's retirement contributions, things like that. And then also identify where we see more money coming in or not coming in, and that sort of thing. And then we build off of that. It's worked fairly well. And council typically has 1 or 2 workshops or more if needed. So we'll have all that together. One thing that we are trying to move forward with, and I think maybe this is at y'all's table, but we have budgeted to do a revamp of the website, and it desperately needs it. And so this is a draft. It is a draft, so don't distribute it. But I did want those of you who have an interest in that to take a look. We'd certainly like to have your feedback where we go out and we receive proposals for doing it. And once we do that, then that's something that council, I think, should be involved in and see what these folks present. Because they'll come present and they'll sell you on how they want to do it. And with these recreation initiatives and things that you're doing, it's a good time. We try to put it off until we can get to that point. So please take a look and let us know if you have any feedback on that. The last thing I had was the follow-up workforce committee meeting. And we had one a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that the Department of Employment and Workforce put together. And at that meeting, and they invited the people that had come to this original meeting when Mohawk left. So that group is still in existence with some additions, some subtractions, but the group wanted to have follow-up meetings. So the date that was found was March 2nd at 10:30 at the Kinney Room at Marion Wright Edelman Library. The council certainly encouraged to be involved. Right now, the basic agenda will be to hear updates or status reports from the school system, from NETC, from South Carolina Works, Ms. Joyette Dukes from COG, and see where we are on that, and then have hopefully a healthy discussion on where we can go with that. A little bit of progress made, I think, but it hasn't much happened in the time period since we had the meeting, and that's the challenge. Is county council and county staff will kind of put these things out, and then people lose interest. So we're going to try to fire it back up again. That's all I have for tonight. I know it's getting late.
I just have a comment. I've shared with you about the American Community Survey, and I think the finance director mentioned that he did receive that. That survey is important because it's a 5-year plan for the county and the city. Can't speak for the city, but businesses will have invitations to respond. And I'm just hoping to follow up. Did you get a chance to make a call to the state, the bureau, as far as do the county have a part in that, or is this just our business?
I don't believe the county does have any, responsibility in that. I know that it certainly is a responsibility of all the businesses. It is a legal requirement that the businesses fill those census,
right.
Applications out.
The Census Bureau states that we only have 307 businesses that's going to be participating. And for some reason, I don't know how they were selected, but I know, only reason because I stay on that website, I just know that if we don't get that in, it's by March 15th.
Right.
This is how we lose a lot of our dollars and things like that. So I am hoping that whatever business or whoever businesses got that, they got it through an email or whomever. I have the same information. I just hope that if there's something that we need to follow up on, that we do that, because that's important. That deadline date is March 15th.
Now, one thing we can do is include that in the newsletter.
It'll be after March 15th. I think probably contact the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
I think where you're going to capture those smaller businesses is
Okay.
through them. So I made a note to give them a call.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the recognizing of the citizens. First up will be Mr. Franklin Smith.
Well, this is about the fourth or fifth time I've been up here concerning the American Rescue Act. And very disappointed that every time I come here, I look across the view of this county here, look at me like I'm going crazy. But I'm not crazy. I like to die behind this situation here. And I did some research that the state of South Carolina gave South Carolina 10 trillions of dollars. 60 million American Rescue Fund was given to Marlboro County. It was given to Marlboro County for essential workers and for roads. Now, we haven't received anything. There are plenty of essential workers, like people that work at McDonald's and places like that. Now, I'm not only talking for myself, but those are true statements there. And we haven't received anything, you know. But I'm looking forward to getting our money, and I think we deserve it. We worked during the pandemic. We worked during we were essential workers. The education board, they got theirs over here. They got theirs. The city got theirs. A lot of people. The county didn't give for a certain amount of people there. And I was working there for 6 years, and unfortunately, I didn't even get a reward for the 6 years I spent. You know, it just called some names out a few minutes ago. I never did get that opportunity. Never did call my name. And I'm one of the guys that helped start a recreation here 40 years ago. But thank you for the respect.
Okay, next up is DeMarco Bostic.
Hello, everybody. My name is DeMarco Bostic, and today I just kind of want to share a few statistics pertaining to health. There are 26,000 plus individuals in Marlboro County. Now, out of that 26,000, we have 31% that is overweight, and that is in adults. Meanwhile, 36% of those adults suffer from obesity. And out of the kids we have here that reside in Marlboro County, 18% suffer from overweight. Meanwhile, 21% suffer from obesity. Now, from a scientific study, the physical inactivity cost is $450 per person. That is $11 million. The people in Marlboro County alone spend more money living a sedentary lifestyle versus the cost it will take to live an active physical lifestyle. I am here to remind the council respectfully that I have created a platform specifically to combat obesity. And in doing so, I have helped 25 plus individuals lose anywhere from 8 to 40 pounds within a 6 to 12 month time span. And I have also created an athletic program for our kids who are now more physically inclined while also reducing the levels of obesity. Now, I have done all of this in various locations within our community, the park, the high school, even my own home. But now I'm at a point to where I am ready to open up a facility to help our community in a more stable and consistent manner to reduce these numbers, because this is a high rate when it comes to being overweight and obese. And in doing so, I am just here to, again, remind the county council members that I am here, and I will be much appreciated if I can get y'all support in doing so. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, well, we're down to the recognition of council members. I'd almost suggest that we do the executive session before we finish up, unless anybody has any objection.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we go to executive session.
Excuse me, it is for economic and personnel matters. Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous? Any opposed?
Chairman, you think we need,
There's the names for economic partnership. So it's just those 5. Okay, we're back out of executive session. A motion to adjourn, who made the motion?
I did.
And who seconded it? Okay. So we came out of executive session. No action was taken in the executive session. We did discuss our administrator resignation and the search for a replacement administrator. And we need a motion to ask assistance from the Association of Counties
So moved.
in seeking a replacement administrator.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. Any opposed? All right.
Mr. Chairman, one thing also, can we ask our HR lady to, see if she has a copy of, job description? Ms. Summer, do you have a job description for, the current, up-to-date administrator?
I have a job description that probably includes that, and the second, but also the economic development links in it. We can look at it, I can look at it with you guys and decide what needs to be in and what doesn't need to be in.
Yeah, could you get us each a copy of that, of both positions?
Okay.
That'd be
Can
great.
you email that to us, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think we're going to forego the recognition of council members.
Mr. Chairman, with a long night and if we're going to council members, I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, it's unanimous. We stand adjourned.